Hello and welcome to this edition of Meet the Red Cross. October 7th through October the 13th is Fire Prevention Week, and joining me on the first half of our show today is Interim Jefferson City Police Chief Jason Turner, and then we're going to be talking about how to prevent fires and really what this week means to you as an audience and what you as an individual can do to help prevent fires. And then on the second half of our show, we've got Mark Rehagen. Mark is a board member. He's been on this show once before, but Mark's got an interesting story that we're going to talk about, and we'll do that in the second part of the show. So, Jason, welcome to Meet the Red Cross.
Well, thank you, Dave. I want to correct you real quick and say it was the fire chief, not the police chief.
Did I say police chief? Well, I'm going to he is the fire chief. All right. Sorry for that.
That's all right.
You know, with the temperatures falling and getting to the point where people are going to start looking at ways to heat their homes rather than cool their homes, there are some things that they can do to help prevent fires and to make themselves more resilient.
That's right, Dave. And you know, it's that time of year here in the homes that we start experiencing the turning on the heaters, turning off the air conditioners, start using supplemental heat in the houses. And what we encourage residents to do is to take the time to make sure that those units are ready. And what we really recommend, that you know, for your furnaces, is to have a service technician come in and look at it. I can't think of how many times in the middle of the night, whenever somebody turns their furnace on for the first time and they go to bed in the middle of the night, all of a sudden they wake up to something smell, the burning, and the smoke alarms going off, and it's more than likely just dust that's built up inside of it. But it can cause some serious damage, and then of course being without a furnace the rest of the night can cause some problems. So we recommend that they get those checked, and more importantly, any time of the year, we recommend that each household has working smoke detectors.
Well, and that's also true with fireplaces as well.
That is right.
You can get those flue fires.
And you know, you want to make sure that you first check with your insurance company and find out what standards and recommendations they have. They have a lot of stipulations on those types of supplemental heating devices. Secondly, you want to make sure that you get your chimney cleaned and inspected annually, because the last thing you want is, of course, a fire, and they can cause a lot of damage whenever they aren't properly used.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back and talk just for a minute about those smoke detectors. You know, and one of the a lot of the information that the Red Cross is sending out to all of us is that in every bedroom there should be a smoke detector. On every floor there should be a smoke detector, and just talk. And then you've also got the carbon monoxide detectors. Right. And so talk just for a minute about the importance of those.
Well, the first thing that, you know, we recommend that every home have smoke detectors on every level and near the bedrooms or in the bedrooms. A lot of people in today's world take for granted that, you know, they have hardwired detectors. The thing that we want to remember is those hardwired detectors also have batteries in them. Mm-hmm. If power goes off, we want those detectors to continue to work. Secondly, we want to recommend to residents that if their detectors are 10 years or older, that they need to be replaced. They get a memory kind of built up inside of them. They're used to the atmosphere, they get a lot of dust particles, and they're just not as effective as they were when they were first installed. There's been studies done on those. So 10 years is what we recommend. And then when you get into the carbon monoxide detectors, what we really recommend there, because there's so many different types of detectors out there, is to follow the manufacturer's recommendations. Install them the way they recommend it. Now, Dave, me and you are two guys here that we know the last thing we want to follow is the directions. But you know, that's what we recommend, and make sure you to follow those. Especially if it's a 110 outlet installed one, you know, that some of those do stipulate that, you know, they need to be located in certain areas. So follow the directions on those.
But I think from what I've been reading, where you put those smoke detectors, you really want to get them up higher on the wall than you do down closer to where they're.
That's correct, because when smoke starts in a fire, the smoke rises and it cuts through the openings in as the hallways expand through the house. So as that smoke moves around in the house, it can be very dangerous. And we want a detector to operate within the first minute or two. Because anything after that is precious time against the residents. It doesn't take, you know, a lot of people assume that a fire occurs, that people die because of a result of a fire. And unfortunately, they end up dying because of the smoke conditions and the superheated gases.
You got an interesting promotion, or what you're going to be doing in a partnership with Lowe's that you've got coming up. Can you talk to you about it?
Yeah, it's a great partnership we've had with Lowe's now for the last 7-8 years, where they come to Fire Station 1 3 nights a week during fire prevention we load up in the fire trucks and we go out in the neighborhoods and install smoke detectors. And it's a great opportunity for us to work with the community. It's a great opportunity to work with such a great company that wants to give back to the community, that has a concern of protecting people during fire prevention. And their employees have just as much fun as we do going inside, talking to people. And even if we don't install a smoke detector, we ask, hey, can we put a new battery in for you? And you make a lot of contact, and you'll be really surprised at the contacts that we make. People don't realize that, well, I knew I had a detector, but I didn't, I just forgot about it. So those are important things we like doing.
You mentioned batteries in there, and I know for a long time, when daylight savings time, when it changed and went into effect, that was the time that we were all putting out there, this is the time to change your batteries. How is that, the change in when daylight savings time begins and ends, how has that affected you?
Well, it's affected, the campaign that used to be out there is change your clock, change your battery. And it's kind of hard now because I think there's only 4 or 5 months during the winter time before we change back during the spring. So, what we encourage residents to do is just pick a time and change them twice a year. Unfortunately, the houses now fortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, have more than one detector. And it's a lot easier to just change the batteries all at once. If you've got 10 detectors, change all 10 batteries out, get it over with, get it done, because trust me, I know what it's like being woke up at 3 in the morning with a bad battery and a detector, because the wife usually doesn't like that. So when you're going to change one, change them all. Pick a time in the year. Whether it's the 1st of November and the 1st of April. Make sure that the family's aware of that. And more importantly, just because we talk about smoke detectors, the next thing is just as important as practicing drills, making sure that everybody knows what to do. We have all kinds of drills in the fire department. In the manuals, and we talk about drills and stuff. But those drills are only good as what they are is if we practice them. And the same thing goes in the home, that if mom and dad and the kids aren't involved in it, then it's not an effective plan, because we don't know how to respond in those situations.
Well, and that's part of the message that we're giving, and I'm really pleased to hear you say that, because make a plan is part of what our message is to all of our donors and to the entire general public. So that they know exactly what to do, and they practice that plan at least twice a year.
That's right. Being prepared is the most important.
Yeah. Well, being prepared is what the Red Cross is trying to do, and we work very closely with the fire departments throughout the 21 counties that we have. Just for a few minutes, Jason, I'd like for you to just speak to what is that relationship like from your perspective from a fire chief, to how the Red Cross, how you work with the Red Cross, and what value the Red Cross has for you.
Dave, when I came here 16 years ago, I took a step back because of the involvement that Red Cross had, because I come from an area in Missouri that that really wasn't there, with the connection. So I was really impressed with what the Red Cross offered to the community. And I take it even one step further at how important it is that when we're out on the job 3 o'clock in the morning, and a homeowner, a family, single mother, or whatever the case may be, has just lost their home or their rental property, one of the first questions we ask is, do you have a place to go? Do you have family here? And you'll be really surprised, and of course the numbers of how many people don't have insurance. They're affected. They don't have a place to go. They don't have family. And it's a personal, I make it a personal, I take it personal to make sure that, I don't want a single mom sleeping in a car with her 2 kids. It's important to me to make sure that those families are taken care of, and I know where to get those resources. And I hate to say that I'm somewhat of a bully about it, but some people are shy about asking for help today. Mm-hmm. And I insist that they share that with us to prove that they have a place to go. And once you see them starting to cave into the need of what we're there to help them with, you start seeing that there is a benefit. And when your people show up on the scene, start asking those questions and getting those resources available for those people, that to me is what makes the job pleasurable for us. I know it's a bad situation for them, but everybody's escaped, nobody's hurt, everything in a house can be replaced. But when the Red Cross shows up, I know that those families have a place to go. And even more importantly, that they help take care of the firefighters out there on those cold mornings, fresh coffee, something to snack on. It's been a long night, and then that's really important.
Well, I think that's one point that maybe a lot of people don't understand and know that when we have fires like that, we do canteening, and we bring emergency response vehicle out, and especially in the summertime when you all are fighting fires in 95 and 100-degree weather. Getting that water and getting you hydrated is vitally important,
and it is, and we appreciate it. I mean, you try to tell a firefighter to sit down for 5 minutes. It's kind of hard to do sometimes, but whenever they drink that ice cold water, you can see it's refreshing to them, and then, hydrating. We preach it all summer long, and sometimes we don't practice it ourselves, but that's how tough they are sometimes.
What is the procedure that that the fire department has for notifying once you've gone to a fire? What's the procedure that you have as far as notifying the Red Cross, and when do you decide when that's going to happen?
I take it kind of as a privilege that whenever I determine I need the Red Cross, I call one of your staff directly, because we work so closely, and that's probably not the standard operating procedure. That whenever we run into those situations, that we know that we have to call communications and they call your on-call person. But once we determine that they're needed, what's nice is within minutes, somebody from the Red Cross is calling us, doing a size up, getting the initial information, how many children are involved, how many adults are involved, trying to get a plan started. And then within just a few minutes, your staff's there helping us take care of those people, and it's a relief for us because we know that they're going through a troubling time.
Well, just in the last minute or so that we have in this show, I'd like for you just to remind our audience one more time about Fire Prevention Week and what they can do to be an active participant in preventing fires in their home, and what steps they can take.
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is make sure you have a working smoke detector. Make sure you have a plan, you know how to respond to that plan, know how to get out and stay out. Teach your children how to respond to those plans. There's no dumb questions. We get phone calls day in, day out asking about certain things. If you don't know, call your local fire department. They've got those suggestions. They can find that resource information for you. And I think probably the most important thing, talk about not having fires or reducing the risk for fires, making sure that our homes are safe, make sure that we use our appliances properly, that we don't try to manipulate the systems and try to get around it. Spend the time to make sure that everything's safe, and use them as they're directed.
Well, Jason, I appreciate you coming on the show today. Jason and I have been friends for a long time, and I appreciate that friendship as well. And I more so than anything else, I appreciate what you do for the folks here in Jefferson City.
Well, Dave, I appreciate what you and the Red Cross do for us.
Right,
thank you.
Okay. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Mark Rehagen, one of our board members, is going to be back with his own story about a fire that he went on.
Coming home can be hard if you're a veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan. You may feel like you're all alone. But you're not alone. At iava.org, your fellow vets are all around you. Join our free online community, get the resources you need, and connect to other vets who know where you're coming from. iava.org. We've got your back.
Hello, and welcome back to Meet the Red Cross. I'm Dave Griffith. I'm the Executive Director of the Heart of Missouri Chapter, and joining us for the second half of our show today is Mark Rehagen, who is the Secretary of our Board of Directors. And Mark has been on the show once before, but one of the things that we have on our Board of Directors is we have a passing of the vest. And Mark, first of all, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Dave. Pleased to be here.
Tell us about the passing of the vest and how that got started and what that means.
Well, our chairman of the board, Kent Trimble, really encourages us to be involved with learning a little bit more about what the volunteers, what the staff do here at the Red Cross. And we as board members, we may not always get that day-to-day understanding of really what the staff and the volunteers do. So he devised a plan where each one of us for 1 month during the year would take this vest, and we would receive a phone call, perhaps when a fire occurs, when there's an emergency out there where the staff and the volunteers are out there, and we would then be able to participate in that activity at that emergency scene.
Now, we started doing this, passing the vest off, I guess about a year ago, is that right?
It was. It's about a year ago. I think I was the second person involved, and very glad to do that, because I feel like it's really important to learn, firsthand, if I can, what the staff and the volunteers are doing. And as it turns out, I think we have an opportunity to I guess, specify what kind of time frames we would prefer to be called. I think it probably was a situation where the fire that I attended or went to was about 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. Is when I received the phone call, and so it was a really, a frightening experience, really, to actually come up to the scene as it was, and but again, it was a very, very helpful situation, very helpful for me to be able to see that firsthand.
I think one of the reasons that we really looked at having our board members do that, and I've got all of my staff is doing that as well, but to really be there on scene when it's all happening, and seeing what the firefighters do, what their role is, and then also what the role of our Red Cross volunteers are, and how they deliver the mission that we have virtually every day. So when you rolled up on scene, what was that like?
Well, it was. There's lights everywhere. It was pretty apparent that the firemen had been there for just only a short while, but had gotten the fire under control. The lights were flashing everywhere. I guess the first person that I saw was then Fire Chief Bob Rennick. And he came up to me, he saw me in the vest, and being a member of our board, he also was aware of the program. So I was very glad to stumble into a person that knew what I was there to do, and welcomed me, and actually sort of took me under his arms and directed me to the attention of the volunteers. There were 2 Red Cross volunteers there already on the site, and they were there working with the victim, or the person who is in the rental property where the fire had occurred. And so I began to sort of follow them and to follow their lead, and pretty well do whatever they asked me to do.
So that was going to be my next question. What was your role there?
Well, again, I think it's more than anything, I was there to learn, and I wasn't there to try to get in the way or to be in the way. I'm not a trained volunteer, so I didn't want to step in and do things that I wasn't capable of doing, but really just to observe and to see what they're doing. And here they are, 2 people very quick on the scene. As I said, the fire had really just been extinguished. They were already there by the time I got there. I don't think that I had gotten a call, really very late after the fire alarm had gone off, and I came around and got there, and but they were there already comforting the victim, and there were two little children there as well, and taking information from those people, and to learn if there was next of kin close by, and already being able to establish a relationship between themselves and the Red Cross.
Well, I think you make a real good point, Mark, and that's one thing when we were talking with Jason Turner in the segment right before this, and is that we're there to assist. And the one thing I'd like for our audience to know is that we do everything in our power to not be in the way of those that are fighting the fire. And our volunteers have been trained to do that, and that we go where we're asked to go, and we provide services that as best we can. And your role there as a board member really was as an observer. And so after it was all said and done, how was that experience for you, and what did that mean? Well,
I think it really proved to me that the Red Cross is ready, and they were there. And I know that the victim of the fire was very appreciative of what the Red Cross was doing, because she got out of the house with nothing but just the clothing that she had on at the time, as well as her children. They gave her a blanket to wrap into, and also, convinced her that maybe she ought to go receive some medical treatment. She was resisting that at first, so they were very encouraging, supportive of her, and encouraged her to go receive that medical treatment, which she did. And then of course there was follow-up too, prior to her leaving to go to the medical treatment, and that was to make sure that she had lodging for the evening. And so they made sure that they had arrangements made for her as well there. But I guess what I realized was that from beginning to end, the Red Cross volunteers were there to assist, and to assist whatever needs the victim had. And they went through a checklist and discovered what those needs were and met those needs throughout the evening.
Okay. Well, Mark is also, he's the chairman of our Government Relations Committee, and we have been meeting here, like many other not-for-profits, I would imagine, in looking at the upcoming session that we're going to be looking at in January. Mark, you've been having some meetings here lately with some other committee members, and really beginning discussion about what we're going to be looking at for this next session. So, are there some things you might be able to share with us about what we're looking at doing, and really what role that government relations has for the Red Cross as it applies with the in terms of the legislature?
Well, we meet as a governmental relations committee every 2 months, and at this point, with the legislative session right around the corner and the pre-filing of bills that will begin in December, it's time for us to put together, make sure that our package of legislation is being developed. And so we have been meeting and talking a little bit about what would be our legislative goals. And of course, we'd like to follow up on last year's goal of introducing, ensuring that high schoolers are CPR equipped or CPR trained. We'd really love to see what a tremendous environment the state of Missouri would have if its high schoolers were actually being trained in the art of, or the science of being able to provide CPR. Also, things such as having a state blood drive day. We would really like to see that a proclamation might be able to be signed this year to establish a state blood drive day. There's such a need out there. I talk about the emergency scene that I went to, although I don't believe that the victim in that particular case was in need of blood that evening, but I know everywhere it seems we go with tornadoes and earthquakes and other disasters, there's a tremendous need for that. So we've always got to be conscious of that, the need for blood drives. And state blood drive day would be a welcomed addition to our calendar. So, and then of course we also have the thought of creating perhaps Red Cross ready schools, high schools that would have a percentage of their students that are CPR trained, first aid trained, babysitting trained, having blood drives. Those that qualify for a certain threshold of activities might be therefore set aside as Red Cross ready schools. And we'd like to see that we are able to develop a program like that.
Why do you think, and just for the edification of our audience, why do you think it's important for the Red Cross or for not-for-profit organizations to have representation in the legislature and in the Senate, and to really be conscious of what's going on?
Well, there's a tremendous amount of goodwill that's created by having friends in the legislature, and of course the role of the Red Cross being as broad as it is, we need to have I guess legislative and county assistance by the county officials to understand our mission and to help us promote our mission, because we're there to help Missourians, Americans, in the time of need. And so if we can help educate and help them understand what the role of the Red Cross is, we're that much better for it.
Well, living here in the capital, we see a lot of people come in and out of town, and especially during session, a lot of organizations and most not-for-profits have got a lobby day that they have. Talk to us about that, about Lobby Day, and kind of what that activity is and what we hope to accomplish from that.
Well, we have a Lobby Day that's scheduled in April of 2014, And it will be an opportunity for us to be meeting with our local legislators in the state capitol. We'll also have a booth set up in the state capitol for all the legislators to come to be able to get information from us as to what our role is and to help us to educate them. And so we'll provide them with literature, we'll provide them with a snack, and there will be a mock IRV there, a resource vehicle that's it's a great symbol for the Red Cross. And so that'll be set up on the third floor of the state capitol. And again, we'll just greet them. We also will then be able to go to the doors of the legislators that are in our district and be able to meet with them and thank them for their support in the past and to ask them for their support in the future.
Okay. One thing that we talked about, and Mark has been on this show once before, and when he was on the show once before, we didn't get to talk about one of his favorite things, and this is not on the script, so this is going to be out there for him. But if you look at Mark, there's one person that probably comes to mind, and that would be Abraham Lincoln. So tell us about how you got started doing that and what that means to you.
Well, that's an interesting question. I guess I got started doing Abraham Lincoln back in the year 2001, and I was asked by a friend of mine, Rob Krause from the Capital City Players, to play the role of Abraham Lincoln in a play. And I guess he thought I was the only tall, slender guy in the group. He said, grow a beard and you'll be a nice Abraham Lincoln. And I, really? You really think I would be a good-looking Abraham Lincoln? He said, yeah, just try it, do it for us. So I did, and I really enjoyed the role. And people commented to me, during the show and after the show, how much I favored Abraham Lincoln. I'm not sure that's a compliment, but regardless, they commented to that effect. And so I've been portraying Abraham Lincoln ever since. I especially like to go to schools on Abraham Lincoln's birthday and portray Lincoln and be a part of providing some living history to them.
So this recent movie that was just released, I guess it's last year, I'm guessing you've seen that.
I have, yes.
And what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I thought it was a very good show. It was a small segment of a time during the Civil War. It's basically January of 1865 when the show was set, and I think was fairly historically accurate. I think they did a really good job with it,
There were a couple of references they made in there to Jeff City instead of Jefferson City.
That's correct. They did. At the beginning of the show, they made a reference to Jeff City, Missouri, and which was a nice reference, a nice tip of the hat to Missouri. Yeah, it was, I think, fairly accurate, historically, and it is Civil War time. It's the 150th anniversary of the Civil War, so anything Civil War related right now is a good show. Yeah. Especially if it has Abraham Lincoln in it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Mark, I appreciate you're a man of many talents, and one of those talents that I sincerely appreciate is what you bring to our board of directors and the passion that you bring that with. And it's a pleasure to serve with you, and I'm glad you got to go on the fire. I'm sorry that it happened, but I'm glad that you got to be there and really be a part of that. So. Thank you so much.
All right,
for being
thank you,
with
Dave.
us.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us on this edition of Meet the Red Cross. We'll be back again next month. We hope to see you then. And if you would like to volunteer, you can give our office a call at 635-1132, and we will be glad to talk with you about how you can be of service to the American Red Cross. Until next time, have a great day.